1079 CDY, it's Cadillac's hit music station, pausing the music for about 30 minutes so we can bring you Cadillac Unscripted, sponsored by Independent Bank and Mary Ann Quist of RE/MAX Central. We are welcoming back to the guest microphone here Mike Kelso, the executive director of the Cadillac area YMCA. We visited with Mike about 4 months ago, Katy, when things were so much different.
Oh my gosh, life was so boring then.
Wasn't it, though?
It was. I mean, you kidding me? It was a piece of cake, wasn't it,
yeah,
Mike?
Compared to now.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh my goodness. Well, welcome, Mike. And I wanted to tell you right before walking into the studio, Dan Smith, who is a mutual close friend to you and I, sent me a text and said, be sure to tell Kelso it's a difficult time to be a leader and that he's my hero. Oh. So that came from the former big boss.
That's right.
High praise.
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
Not bad.
So tell us what's going on. I mean, how's it going?
Yeah, so last 3 months were pretty rough, you know, but I don't want to dwell on that too much because I think we're all kind of in the same boat relatively with that, right?
Moving on.
Yeah, definitely scary at first and then kind of settling into what is this going to be like. But the last week has been uplifting because on Monday we were able to open our doors again a little bit wider, not completely wide.
Okay.
So we pretty much maintained childcare in our building almost throughout the whole closure time. Like, yeah, we I think it's hard to remember back to March 16th, 17th. It's a crazy blur, but I think maybe we were stopped for a couple days and then it came out emergency childcare can still happen. And everyone was just really uncertain about that. And we had like 3 or 4 families, you know, one that was a nurse, a doctor, transportation. They're all in that. And
critical.
You know, we said, all right, we're going to do this. Even though it doesn't really make financial sense, like we need to do something tangible for everybody's sanity, you know, for our service sanity and those people's needs. So let's do that. And then it just slowly started coming back one kid at a time. And by the time we opened wider on Monday, you know, we were up to 20, 30 some kids.
Mike, I don't think the community knew about that. I mean, and I'm sure you weren't broadcasting it either. You know, it was...
Yeah, I mean, we're basically just taking care of the kids who were already enrolled, but we were only allowed to take care of certain ones based on the family work
situation
industry, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Wow. So you've got so many people that the why is their community, the why is their social life. Can you tell us about those folks?
Yeah, so, you know, we had to really flip our mindset. Our mindset was gather lots of people face-to-face, you know, in groups, and how do we adapt to that quickly? So did a lot of virtual things, especially in the health and fitness realm.
Great.
And then we really looked, all right, what are our vulnerable populations that we serve? So our childcare, we were doing what we could for them. Our seniors through our Senior Fit program and seniors in general, and virtual stuff for them is a little more challenging. So we were doing well chat calls right away. And then our Senior Fit folks, we were good old snail mail, mailing them paper on workouts and calling them.
I love it.
And then we did a little bit of an assessment of, all right, what are your technology abilities as a senior and what are your just general needs, making sure they're still getting medication and groceries and that type of stuff. And most of them were
amazing outreach.
Yeah. So most of them were good on those initial couple weeks, good on those, the basic needs stuff, but we found out a lot of them are online. So we made a Facebook group just for them.
Oh, did you really?
And did some YouTube videos, and not everybody was able to access those, but enough were. And then we moved into, once we got things kind of solidified with our program changes, and Munson Healthcare supports that financially, that program.
Wonderful.
And were they still willing to support that and how we're changing it? And they were. And so then we took the next step and used some of our nationally produced fitness videos for seniors that were, you know, professionally quality ones, not just us with the iPhone. I got those broadcast on My News 26.
Excellent.
So then regardless, as long as you could turn on the TV and you were local as a senior, you could get those. And we've been doing that, I think, for 3 or 4 weeks now.
What an amazing partnership you have with all these different agencies.
Yeah. Everyone was just ready and understood instantly. What's been great about this, if you want to put a silver line, is the whole community, state, world, however, was experiencing the same thing. So when we talked about shifting expectations and shifting strategies, it wasn't much of a discussion. Everyone understood why you were doing that. Typically, when we're trying to change how we're doing things, it gets questioned a little more, like, why are you changing this? Everyone understood, right? So that made us a little more nimble. In making those changes. So,
did you compare notes with other YMCAs across the country?
Yeah. So another silver lining to this, Before we were forced to start working virtual, most of my collaborations and bouncing ideas off was local.
Okay.
And I had contact with the state and national alliance, but that increased exponentially. We went to, as a state alliance of Ys, which that organization was already there. So instead of meeting in person once a quarter, we were meeting via Zoom 3 days a week. And then now we're
support.
Yeah. And then we went down to 2 days a week, and now we're like every other week.
Okay.
But that, me, for being still pretty new in my role, was essential. And it was kind of strange because I'd only met most of those folks once or twice. Mm-hmm. And so now my relationship was within a 2-inch square on my screen with 20 some of them at once, but it still really developed. So it's the first time we're developing relationships that way, but comparing notes, resources.
You made new friends.
Yeah, made new friends and new colleagues in that. We all work deeper together, even those who are veterans in those roles. Mm-hmm. So that was a huge asset to have, to not feel alone in that.
So the C in YMCA stands for Christian.
Yes.
And can you talk about your faith and the role that played in your leadership during this time?
Yeah. I wasn't ready for that one, Katy. Good job. So, no, that's good.
It's hard to throw you, bro.
Yeah.
Way to go, Katy.
Yeah.
Good job.
And I hope a lot of people experience the way, but for me personally, I've been a person of faith for a long time, but it dialed me in pretty hard in those first couple of weeks.
I've got goosebumps.
Yep. And one thing to talk about our state alliance. We start every one of those meetings with a devotion. Our leader of the state alliance is a very rooted guy in his faith, and some great things that brought some of us on those Zoom calls to tears a few times. And there's some great things out there that, kept it in perspective. And we're all trying to be professional leaders to save our organizations is what it feels like, but push it forward and adapt. But then you get real human in moments too, and just kind of falling apart a little bit for the moment of just the gravity of it all. And, the faith that was part of that group and personally definitely helped to bring that together.
Yeah, it was the glue.
Yep, for sure.
Let's talk about, I'm sorry, Rich, and Rich can't get a word in edgewise, but I'm just so interested in.
He opened his mouth. He was almost there.
He was almost there, yeah.
You're on a roll. I'm letting you go.
Thank you. Yeah. But the equipment. I mean, how are you sanitizing? How does this work?
Yeah, so where are we now, right? I got into those 3 months were tough, but it was just great stuff to do. And we did a lot of other things there. We don't have time for all that, but we're moving on. So we knew right away, we needed to space things out. That was very obvious. That was going to come to us when we were allowed to open.
This is a 6-foot thing.
Yeah, 6 foot or even more than that in some cases, by the nature of the activities we do, and also sanitizing and whatnot. So the biggies that you will see if you come back to the Y at this point is all of our self-powered cardio equipment. Almost all of it is now in half of our gymnasium. That's all 6 feet apart. So in our wellness center before is basically just the treadmills, because that's where they had to be plugged in. And the weight equipment's bolted down, and that didn't really move. And so now we're just trying to keep people not using 2 pieces right next to each other.
Okay.
So that's the biggest changes physically that you can see. Plus our lobby, we removed almost all the furniture, just a few pieces, just to create good spacing there.
People used to hang out in that lobby.
And it's really tough to, we found ourselves as a staff and board volunteers having conversations that were completely counter to how we normally have conversations. How can we push people apart? No, we were usually talking about how can we pull people together. We knew it was for the right reasons and the right things to be doing. It's just
counterintuitive.
It's hard to wrap your mind around that, but I think we've done pretty well. Sanitation wise, we've got I feel like we always were good at keeping a good, clean environment, but a much more rigorous timing, how often we're doing that, and some new tools and accountability check sheets types of things. We have electrostatic sprayers, which I didn't know what those were. 4 months ago.
Electrostatic? Say that 3 times fast.
Electrostatic sprayer.
Yeah,
wow.
There you go. So we have those now.
I'm paid to communicate. That's my job.
So
what do they do?
Essentially, it takes a normal cleaner disinfectant and it vaporizes/mystifies it and gives it a little bit of an electrostatic charge, so it wraps around something to kind of more thoroughly clean it.
Sounds like Mission Impossible stuff
like
here.
Jetsons.
It's on a little gun, and they won't let me use it because I'm too mature. Because because I say pew pew every time, I get to pull the trigger. So, but but they're really easy to use. Yeah, and it's the same things we've always cleaned with, but it just lets it apply it wider and more efficiently. So we have a couple of those we're using in all the whole building. So those are probably the big changes, and lots of little changes. So.
Okay, so what's the second biggest change?
Well, right now we're open just for members.
Okay.
So really just trying to make sure we can serve the people that, paid the bills, maintain their membership, and just what does that do at our capacity? So we learned from talking with other Ys around the country that some of them were open back up mid-May. We talked to them and they said, don't go too far too quick. It's better to start out really conservative with what you're offering and then just add things as you can.
You don't want to take it away. You don't want to have to pull back.
Yes, right. It's one thing if the whole nature of the culture pulls us back and executive orders pulls it back. Another thing if we just make bad decisions that we go, we went too far and pull it back, right?
Yes.
So really easing into it. So right now, for the most part, we're members only. Non-members can come to our outdoor group exercise classes because we have a big capacity there. And just fitness center and just pool for lap swimming only. And you pre-register. So you want to swim laps, you get online or call the front desk and you book your hour.
Can't just come and jump in the pool anymore.
Can't just come and jump in. And then starting today, you can book 2 lanes as a family. So a household can come to a family swim together, but it's just that household and they get their hour in a time frame. So we're trying to, how can we get family stuff back? And
Mike, you had to reinvent the wheel here.
Yeah, we had to really reinvent the wheel and keep everything in a box that we could understand and control the capacity is really what it came down to. So,
oh my goodness.
And that's probably the biggest thing for you because as a building where people come and congregate, that is probably being monitored, legislated more than anything right now.
Yes, it's being monitored and legislated, but not a lot of really clear guidance. So that's tricky.
Delicate.
So yes, it's delicate. So we're just trying to err on the side of conservative at this point.
That's what I was going to say. Just be conservative.
Zone or area, whatever you want to call it, 6 and 8, the Northern Michigan and the Upper Peninsula were allowed to open gyms, community centers before the guidelines from the state for those industries are even out.
Oh boy!
So we have
and the egg.
Yeah. So that was just the generalities in the executive order. So they weren't real deep. The guidelines, the work groups are working now. We have some Y representatives statewide who are on those work groups.
Oh, good.
They've met. I think it was a week and a half ago. I talked to them last, but they haven't come out with anything. So if those could change what we're allowed to do, because we anticipate them to be more specific, but early signs say it shouldn't mess us up.
Oh, good. So, we don't want anyone to, jerk his leash here.
Yeah.
Well, you come to expect something and then have to take it away, right?
Yeah. It's there's lots of complaints about what's going on, but no one has an easy job in this, including our government and health officials. So the information isn't perfect, but they're dealing with tough stuff too.
He's so nice all the time.
Well,
trying.
It's very diplomatic, but we as a society, we've never been through this before.
That's right.
Yeah.
Mistakes are going to be made. Things are going to be done wrong.
Yeah.
Hopefully, years from now or months from now, we look back and say, you know what, we made the right decision.
That's right.
Part 2 of our conversation with Mike Kelso, Executive Director of the Cadillac Area YMCA, coming up next on 107.9 CDY and Cadillac Unscripted. Buying a home is still the great American dream. And yes, it can be an intimidating process, but you can rest assured and have confidence when the professionals from RE/MAX Central are in your corner to guide you through it. Mary Ann Quist of RE/MAX Central has helped hundreds of home buyers in and around the Cadillac area navigate the process over the years, and she's ready to help you too. From start to finish, from finding a home to submitting an offer, to understanding the purchase agreement, to inspections, surveys, and appraisals, to the time when you finally sit down and sign those closing documents, Mary Ann will be there. When you're ready to buy, talk to Mary Ann Quist at RE/MAX Central. See her listings at teamquist.com. We continue now with part 2 of our conversation with our friend Mike Kelso from the Cadillac Area YMCA, Executive Director. Cadillac Unscripted is sponsored by Independent Bank as well as Mary Ann Quist of RE/MAX Central.
Tell us about your customers. Your paying members. What's their mindset? Have they been patient with you? Have they been appreciative?
Yes, for the most part, absolutely. And we, when this first happened mid-March, we're like, oh no, the sky is falling. We want to, what do we do with membership? Do we keep it going? How do we deal with that with people? So a couple things we decided was we are going to keep charging membership dues as long as we're offering something to the community. And then so that was childcare, feeding program, online, lots of virtual programming. And then we're going to be really diligent about communicating and being as open as possible about if you want to go on hold, it's free. If you want to terminate, you can do that at any time. And so we did that, and we did 12 communications about that as each closure got extended about every 2 weeks is how it kind of played out. We thought we would lose 50-60%, but we over that 3 months I think we lost about 60-70%, depending on how you say. So more people stuck with us than we thought, and we're very thankful for that. And we understand, we said if you can't support us financially, or you don't feel you're getting your fee for service, if that's how you look at it,
but they got to feed their families. Fine. It's priorities, isn't it?
So
Mike?
we did it was we took, if it was kind of after the fact that they paid, we took requests, and then the board approved those as they came in.
Wonderful way to do it.
Yeah. So just so we had, you can get into this panic mode of we have to respond like, let's be methodical about this, thoughtful. So we would take the request, and we were meeting every 2 weeks as a board. And then we would review those and approve those, and virtually everything got approved through that. So
really well done.
But
again,
helped.
Leadership by fire.
Yeah, leadership by fire. So, but we did.
I was going to say, I think you should identify your board members because they have had an incredible, tough job over the last few months.
It's another job.
Yes. Yeah. And most of them worked in industries that were continuing to operate. Most of them were just, all of a sudden had a vacation. So they were, leaders in their organizations and helping me stay on top of what's going on with the Y, let alone what they're dealing with professionally. So,
wow. That's when you sign on for a board, right?
Yeah.
I tell you, that's where the rubber meets the road, is when something like this goes down. You look at your board and you go, you ready?
Yep.
Let's see it. Really.
Yeah. And it was just at the point we were starting to get, into our relationship a little deeper. So it forced it.
Another silver lining.
Yeah. I think,
they're closer.
I was Sunday night calling, I think, people on our finance committee about, some big decisions or big things happening that I felt were imminent, and, usually we weren't doing that too much. So yeah, the community's been great. And I think the presence that we were able to keep with the things that we did do during that 3 months made a big difference. And we got a lot of positive feedback and support. And every time we'd send one of those emails that we were closed again, of course, people were like, all right, I'm out. I need to drop. I need to hold. That's fine. But we'd also get a lot of, you guys are doing great. I'm happy to keep paying. And that's now their donation.
Amazing.
And
built some loyalty in that.
Yes.
We had Pastor Torco and Pastor Godsey on the show, and we expected that they would be calling their congregation and their members. I didn't see this happening with a Y reach out like this. That's just incredible, Mike. Well done.
Yeah, thank you. I think we just saw it as need to keep doing what we always have been, what people expect of us in an adaptive way, and we also need to look for emerging needs, and how are we positioned to address those emerging needs?
That's right. So your teen at-risk program is near and dear to so many. I mean, these kids that have been through it and then being mentored by people who have turned out okay. Rich, what'd you do with that program during this time?
So, that's a group that struggles in the normal world, right?
Yes.
And now
they're having a hard time already.
They are now isolated from their resources with school being out, and then the Y closing, DHS and the rules that they could reach out and visits and home visits and that type of thing. So we said, all right, well, let's try to do some virtual stuff. And, are they going to buy into that? We're, as professional adults, we had Zoom was our thing. Are they going to do that? Or, they're not really, you can't do that proximity. Will they buy into it? And we were shocked at how many of them did. Not all of them did, but so we were doing Zoom meetings with our Teen Impact Program youth.
What percentage participated?
For that group, I want to think it was 60-70%.
All right.
Yeah. And then we just did some of our general teen center kids, and we have a lot of participation with that, but it was the ones that were our regulars and really, had a deeper relationship with us and participated in that.
Because I worried that some of those kids would go into a spiral without you guys holding them accountable, there's this accountability factor with their mentors and stuff.
Yeah, and I think it was just a familiar face. That's what they had, so we could at least put it on a screen.
Good.
And I was really worried early on of, there's some great things that happen on social media for everybody and for youth, but there's some negative things that happen there. And when you're idle and bored as a not fully developed human being as a teenager, some of those negative things start cropping up. So we tried to say, all right, let's try to insert some positive thoughtfulness into their world via social media.
Really good.
And that's what we did, so we could influence that world as much as we could. But it's a tough world to influence. It's so overwhelming.
It's interesting because pre-COVID-19, I would think the why maybe is 2 parts physical, 1 part emotional.
Okay.
And post-COVID-19, it's almost like that's flipped.
Yeah, I think it has. And I think even the physical part, it's probably not in what you see on the surface, but we as a staff and a volunteer corps knew that physical part before was emotional, spiritual. Those things all follow each other. That is usually the gateway for people. It's the, I want to lose weight or I want to this. And then we hopefully guide them to that there's more to it than the physical realm of that. And this gives us an opportunity to magnify that part for sure.
Wow, it's good stuff.
Really good stuff. Yes, great work.
Yep, it's fascinating to see people leap into action when it's forced on them.
That's right.
And
true leadership.
That's exactly what happened here.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah. Okay, so in the next month, if the world's a perfect place,
what
does the Y look like?
If only.
In the next month, I think we all just want to get back to normal.
We do.
And I want that too, to a point, but I think there's hopefully some things we can do differently that even if we're allowed to go back to normal, to hang on to that social, emotional, mental focus. If the world's perfect, where capacity isn't an issue anymore, we can bring those people back in more volume. That makes us less nervous financially as an organization. But we're preparing things aren't pointing to that's going to happen. So we're really preparing for, I think we were really celebrating. We had a board meeting via Zoom last night and, really something we've made it to this point. Someone said we've made it and they really meant we've made it to this point. Well, we were able to open our doors. We're not out of money. So we've made it to this point. We're celebrating that. But I think we're in the eye of the hurricane, perhaps,
Oh, really?
What's our economy going to do? How quick can we get our capacity back up? We're not out of the woods with these restrictions and this stuff yet, even though, we're losing patience. What we have to do as individuals with masks and distancing, at least by recommendations and by restrictions, we're not out of the woods. So,
and we've seen an uptick. That's scary.
Yeah. So, I think we're in the eye of the hurricane. I think the other second half of the storm is going to be different than the first half, and we're more prepared for the second half, I think, of kind of trying to anticipate what's coming. But so we're going to try to be smart about it, ramp up where we can, be pretty conservative, financially so that we can ride it out, as long as before we would have to make real negative changes, right?
Right.
Been able to keep our staff, our full-time staff, never missed a beat. We did, lay off our part-time staff for about 4 or 5 weeks, and we were able to bring them all back through payroll protection and pay them even if they weren't working at a full rate. And then as we opened, we kind of went back to, not everybody's back to work, but a large amount of them are. And the staff have been great. There's a lot of tenuous things that can happen and stress that can happen with a employer when you're sweepingly telling everyone not to come to work on March 16th. That was the hardest thing for me ever to do.
Hard decisions as an administrator.
Community, you can't come in and nobody come to work. I was not.
You felt like you failed.
Yeah. So, but we've bounced back for that, and I think it's a good testament to the culture we've always had at our Y. Vast majority of our staff were ready to come back and ready to get back into it. And our full-time staff, that it was just the 7-8 of us for those 3 months, other than a few childcare folks, of just trying to refocus. I mean, our ability to instantly respond. We had, we closed the 16th. By the 18th, we had virtual programming going.
Wow.
And they just put their heads down and heads together at the same time and just went to work on adapting and just really proud of that. We've had some stressful, kind of worn out, exhausting moments, and us getting to open again really kind of rejuvenated. To see people again really helped.
But I was worried about fatigue.
Yeah.
When you opened, I thought this is drinking water out of a fire hose here.
Yeah. Yep.
And here you sit smiling.
Yeah.
What can the community, I'm not talking about your members because we know they support you, but what can the community at large do to support Mike and to support the YMCA?
Well, if you're financially in a spot to give, that would be great.
Okay.
If folks in the community are working in areas of human service and they're seeing an emerging need, we want to know that.
Meaning for programming.
Yeah, for programming or just helping out. An example that we got into a little bit of the timing of us paying everybody of our staff-wise for payroll protection, but not having enough work for them really to do. I also found the need that Council on Aging, they're restricting what they could do, but they were still trying to get groceries to people, but they're still doing personal care, and they didn't want to send those same folks into grocery stores to not potentially bring risk to those households.
Wow.
So we started doing grocery shopping with our staff.
Of course they did.
For the Council on Aging. It's a service that they've always done, but it became harder for them to do. But Amy Gibbs from Habitat was helping with that as well, and she kind of brought our nonprofits together,
yes.
to help another human service agency. So
how did that phone call go? And who made that phone call?
I think Amy was doing that, I think, with Harborview, kind of through Council on Aging Harborview. And then it kind of got overwhelming for her as an individual. And she said, hey, other nonprofits, can you help? And so then I talked to Kathy and Carrie over at Council on Aging and said, hey, I've got, let's logistically figure this out. So 2 days a week we're doing shopping because that's the population. We've got all this online tools to get your groceries delivered or picked up, but that population struggles with that. And we just kind of needed to do the grassroots old school way of doing it, just insert some safety in a different group of people. Basically.
Wow. So
heroes,
write it.
Heroes working in the shadows. I mean, we would never have known this.
Never. No, that's amazing. And to watch these nonprofits not be territorial, like, well, that's my job or that's my job, but instead the work needs to get done, coming together and stepping up to the plate. It's amazing what Cadillac does when we all work together. Mike, you're just doing an amazing job, and
thank you.
I know Dan Smith's proud.
Yeah. Well, he helped mold me a bit for 9 years, so give him some credit for that too.
Let's just give him a little credit. No, I'm kidding.
In the few minutes that we have left, what's next? What is your what do you want to do? Yeah,
so we want to ramp up as quickly as we can with the services that we were already providing, and so we open on Monday. Tuesday, my staff meeting with my management staff is what's next? What are we introducing next? We need to be ahead of our demand, of what things are we introducing next. So that's really short term. A long term, what are the emerging needs coming out of this? I think a lot of that's really going to hit once they figure out what's going on with school. We've always worked with CAPS with various programs in various ways. They got a tough thing. They're trying to figure out what's expected of them and what are they allowed to do. June 30th is supposed to give them some sort of plan.
And they're behind.
And that could change.
Yeah.
Between June 30th and when school starts.
I've been leaving Jen alone for the most part. She's got a lot. We've talked a few times here in the last 3 months, but we want to be prepared to come alongside. There's going to be holes there and gaps that are different than they were before. Can we come along? So I think that's an opportunity for us and other agencies to be ready to serve. Those people that needed lots of human services, kids and families, have been isolated from that.
Yes.
Really concerned about when we get those kids back. What are we seeing? We start day camp here in a couple of weeks. We're going to have behavioral health specialists from PHO, Munson, ISD. They're going to be out with us at camp.
Amazing.
Because we're helping them out with access to kids that they lost at school, so they're happy just to have access to do their work. And we're like, those kids coming out of isolation, they're all of a sudden in a group. That's always a tough transition. I think it could be a little tougher, so they're going to be there to help our staff and help our kids.
And that was the next question I was going to ask. How does Camp Torrenta look different this summer?
Yeah, so just day camp. We're not doing resident camp, which is tough because I think it's the first time in 113 years there weren't kids staying overnight there.
Oh, boy.
But we just lost 1 week, so we're doing staff training next week. We're going to have 5 weeks of day camp starting July 6th. A lot of the same activities, but kids are going to get in their group as a cabin group, and they're not going to mix with the other kids. That's the biggest change.
Go.
So capture the flag all camp game probably isn't going to happen. but we're still going to get to swim, kayak, canoe, rock climb, arts and crafts, nature hikes, but just they're going to stay with their group. And there's some pros and cons to that, and hand washing stations everywhere.
Yeah,
Wow.
absolutely.
Well, Mike proves that the show must go on, and we just hats off. Please commend your board from us and thank them for their service to Cadillac, and hats off to you too, Mike.
Thank you.
All right. Join us next week for Cadillac Unscripted. Same time, same station, 8:30 on 107.9 CDY. Big thanks to our sponsors, Independent Bank and Mary Ann Quist of RE/MAX Central.